Revelation chapter 3. Am I coming and going? Is that me? I'm kind of cutting in and out. Maybe that's all right. Maybe I'll just talk a whole lot louder today. If it cuts out, it cuts out. Revelation chapter 3, verse 7. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, the words of the Holy One, the true one who has the key of David, who opens, and no one will shut. Who shuts, and no one opens. I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power, and yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you. Because you have kept my word about patient endurance. I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world, to try those who dwell on the earth. I am coming soon. So hold fast what you have, so that no one may seize your crown. The one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. Never shall he go out of it. And I will write on him the name of my God, the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down from my God out of heaven, and my own new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. For 6 weeks now, we have been reading through the 7 letters that Jesus writes to the churches in Asia Minor. These are early, significant churches, gatherings of brand new believers to this fledgling faith of Christians. And Jesus is writing to them after his ascension into heaven, and he has a message for them. And we've unpacked what those letters have said over the last several weeks. But the significance that they carry to us today is equally as profound today in 2019 as they were when he wrote those letters to those churches thousands of years ago. And so this morning I want us to dig into this 6th letter. Here's something that's important for us to understand, just to kind of stop as we look back over the previous 5. The overarching theme that is in all of these letters is the theme of lordship. Jesus is calling his people to solidify in their heart that Jesus is Lord over their lives. And this is why I believe the Holy Spirit wants us as a community of faith in this particular season of our story, why he wants us to lean into these letters, understanding what these letters say. Because he wants for us to make sure that he is truly Lord of our hearts, that his lordship is established in our hearts, that he's Lord of our lives, and that we are loyal to his lordship. When we are, we can see through these letters that he makes promises, not just for today, and not just for tomorrow, but promises for all eternity that we can hold on to. But here's the reality. And if you don't get anything else that I say this morning, my hope is that you hear this morning, nothing else challenges the lordship of Jesus more than when we doubt his faithfulness. Let's say it again. Nothing else challenges the lordship of Jesus more than when we doubt his faithfulness. Now, if we're honest, as we look over these past several letters, we see that Jesus has sent some pretty sobering words to some of these churches. Some of them can kind of make you cringe. Just like, ooh, I don't think I'd want to be at that church. To the church at Sardis early on, he says, or last week rather, he says, you have a reputation for being alive, but you are dead. To the church at Thyatira, he says, basically tells them, you've got a spiritual prostitute in your midst, and you need to get rid of her. To the church at Smyrna, he says, it's going to get worse for you before it gets better. But this letter, the letter that he writes to the church of Philadelphia, is filled with hope and encouragement, not just for the Philadelphians, but for us today. You see, in this letter, Jesus reminds the church of Philadelphia that he is faithful. Now, to the church at Pergamum, he writes a letter and he challenges them to remain faithful. But in this letter, He says, I am faithful. This letter has many of the same characteristics that we've looked at over the past 6 weeks. There is the characterization of Jesus that he offers when he says he was writing the letter. It's there. There is the commendation for them, recognizing the good that they're doing. And then there's the command that he offers them, saying that you have to do this. If you do this, there's also the commitment that he makes to them. But noticeably absent in this letter, that you find in almost all of the other letters, is the criticism for the church. You don't see or hear him saying any critical word of the people at Philadelphia. Because it's not his letter, is it to challenge or correct them? His letter is to encourage them and to remind them of his faithfulness to them. You see, the people of Philadelphia, they understood something about faithfulness. They got faithfulness. Let me unpack a little bit of its history for you so you can understand what I mean by that. Most people know that Philadelphia is known as the city of brotherly love. When you think of Philadelphia, you most likely probably think of Philly, PA, right? And you think of, oh, that's the place with great cheesesteak sandwiches and the Liberty Bell and all kinds of other great claims to fame. But that's not the Philadelphia that Jesus is writing his letter to. In fact, he writes a letter to a church that was thousands of years ago. And the name Philadelphia comes from a really interesting background story. You see, there was a king by the name of Attalus II. Philadelphus was his full name. And he was a co-ruler alongside of his brother, Eumenes II. And they ruled in the ancient city of Pergamum. We studied this a couple of weeks ago, about the city of Pergamum. These brothers had a very strong bond of love and faithfulness between one another. On one occasion, Eumenes II, who was the actual king, the prominent king, he had been on a visit to Rome, and while he was traveling back, his caravan was attacked, he was ransacked, and he was believed at home to be killed in the process. So Attalus hears of the passing of his brother and steps up. He marries his widow and assumes the throne of the city and takes over the leadership and the governance of the city. Only to find out sometime later that, in fact, Eumenes had not been killed, that he had actually survived the attack. So that when Eumenes came home, Attalus actually divorced his now wife, his brother's wife, and ceded the throne back to his brother so that he could resume his rightful place on his throne. Unheard of. Most people would expect that I'm king, you can fall in line behind me, buddy. You were the one that got in trouble. You weren't paying. Brothers would probably kind of argue. No, not Philadelphus, not Attalus. He says, no, this is your throne. He steps back and lets his brother take place back on his throne. Sometime later, as co-ruler of Pergamum, Attalus himself would go back and forth to Rome. He would send envoys. He would go and he would meet with the Romans. And he gained a very strong, very good reputation with the Romans. So much so that the Romans even offered at one point to help him overthrow his brother so that he could become king of Pergamum again. And Attalus loved his brother, was so faithful to his brother, that he rejected their offer and went home and remained as co-regent of the city of Pergamum. Now, eventually, Eumenes II died. And Attalus then steps up again. His son is too young to take the throne, so he remarries his ex-wife, who was his brother's first wife. It's like a big whole crazy soap opera, right? But no, out of loyalty to his brother, he remarries his brother's wife and assumes the throne and remains there until his brother's son could then rise and take the throne. Under his rulership, Pergamum then, he established, as king of Pergamum, he then establishes the city of Philadelphia. And so this is where you get this picture of brotherly love. It's embodied in the very foundations of the city. His reputation for loyalty and faithfulness was known far and wide. But unfortunately, the spirit of loyalty and faithfulness that was found in the city of Philadelphia was not always reciprocated. In 17 AD, there was a massive earthquake that came through and practically destroyed the entire city. And then just a couple of years later, in 21 AD, another earthquake, lesser in strength, but bringing even more damage to an already wounded city. And so Philadelphia looked to Rome as a Roman province, as a city under Roman rule, looked to Rome to provide assistance. And Rome simply just said, you don't have to pay us any tribute for 5 years, but offered nothing else to them as far as assistance or an effort to get back up on their feet. Their faithfulness, their loyalty, even to the Roman government, was never recognized. They had hoped for help, but that help never really came. What was necessary was someone to step up, to show them, these people, of faithfulness, some loyalty for a change. And the church at the time of this letter, they felt the same way. You see, they struggled under the oppression and isolation and persecution as Christians. They found themselves completely isolated and alone. And Jesus knew that. And he says to them, he recognizes their situation as he characterizes himself in the opening of the letter. Verse 7, these are the words of the Holy One, the True One. He says that he's holy. In other words, he's saying he's perfect. He's incorruptible. And he says that he's true. He's telling them that he is reliable, trustworthy, faithful, and loyal to his people. That's just what the people of Philadelphia needed, was someone they could count on. Someone who says, look, I'm not going to turn my back on you. You can count on me. I am true to what I say. I will do what I'm going to say I'm going to do. I've got your back. I'm faithful to you. Put your trust in me. I'm true. You can hold on to my hand. I'll walk with you. And so he gives them this assurance. And this assurance that Jesus offers them is just one of the many pieces of encouragement that the people of Philadelphia get in this letter. This letter can encourage us as well, especially when we find ourselves dealing with disappointments. Anyone ever been disappointed? Two of you over here. How about over here? Okay, a few more of you over here. What about struggles and conflict? What about showing yourself faithful to other people and those people not reciprocating that faithfulness back to you? Have you ever been in that situation? You ever felt betrayed? This letter is chock full of hopeful encouragement to the people of Philadelphia and to us. Jesus assures us that he is holy and true. He is perfect and trustworthy. And regardless of our circumstances, we can trust in his faithfulness. He's faithful. Another aspect of this letter that as I was reading and I found so encouraging, is that Jesus tells the church at Philadelphia that he knows their story. He says in verse 7, I know your works. And what he's saying is, I know you. I know what you've been through. I know where you've come from. I know what's going on in your life. I see you. I recognize you. And I'm not weirded out by your story. I'm not put off by who you are or what you've walked through. I'm not going to be like everybody else. I know you, and I'm here for you. I just want to push pause here for a second and just say to somebody, Jesus knows your story. Now some of you, that might weird you out because you're like, no, wait a minute, nobody knows my story. No, I'm locked down. Alcatraz, Fort Knox. No, nobody knows the stuff I go through. Nobody knows the trouble. You're like, that's your song. Nope, you don't know. But Jesus does. He knows what you think at night when you lay in the bed. He knows what wakes you up at night. He knows what's happened to you. He knows when you've been victimized. He knows when you have been betrayed. He saw it. He recognizes what you've walked through. And he wants you to know that he is not put off by your story. He isn't separating himself or distancing himself from your story. He wants to step toward you, and he wants to prove himself faithful to you in spite of your circumstances. Jesus knows your story. And he's okay with your story. Now, he's not okay with how things happened, or maybe how things are. But He's okay enough to make sure that that's not your story forever.
Amen.
Because He wants to rewrite it. He wants to give it a better ending. He wants to step up into your life, and He wants to show Himself faithful to you. But the question is, will you trust in His faithfulness enough to say, all right, Jesus, if you know and you're not going anywhere, then come on in. Let's walk this out together. Let's walk through this story of mine together. There's so much. Man, I wish I had the time to unpack to you the depths of the meaning about when He says to them, I know that you haven't denied my name, that you've kept my word, and that you've held on to what I told you about patient endurance, and that I'm going to keep you from the hour of trial that's coming on everyone else. There's so much hope and encouragement in all of this letter to the church at Philadelphia, but there's 3 key promises that I believe that He speaks, that He wants to share, speaking to someone else's heart and life today. Gina said this morning as we were in worship. She said, this is a word for somebody. I know over the last few weeks that we've talked about some pretty heavy things in these letters. And today I'm excited to maybe lighten it up a little bit and to be able to walk away from here with some hope and some encouragement. But what I truly believe is that some of you are sitting here today and you need to hear a word. And that word for you today is that He is faithful to you. He isn't going to turn His back on you. He's not going to leave you in the midst of your problems, your worries, your fears, your doubts, your sickness, your brokenness. He's not going to leave you. He wants to walk up beside you, and He has promises that He wants to speak into your life. And the first promise that He gives to the church at Philadelphia that I believe that He speaks to us is that He promises open doors. Verse 7, still describing Himself, He is the one who has the key of David, who opens and no one will shut, who shuts and no one opens. Verse 8, behold, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. Listen, these people knew something about doors being slammed in their faces, especially the Christians. We talked about this a little bit last week as we talked about the letter to the church at Sardis. When we were talking, he makes the promise that your name will not be blotted out. You see, as Christianity started, it was considered to be a sect of Judaism. So most Christians, most believers in Jesus who were Jewish, continued to go to the synagogue just like every other good Jewish person on a Friday night. You'd find them there on Saturday. You'd find them observing the feast and all of the customs of Judaism. They were there. But as it grew and as more people began to believe in Jesus, there was a tear that took place, even in families. And they would recognize, wait a minute, you believe that this Jesus of Nazareth is the Messiah? Well, you can't be Jewish. You can't still be part of the synagogue. You're going down a wrong path. And so what would happen is that these tears, these divisions, these broken things would happen in family relationships. And these believers in Jesus would be locked out of the synagogues. So that when the Sabbath would come around and they would see their whole family going to synagogue, and they might step out to say, well, let's try to go this day. Let's try to go on this Sabbath. They would be told when they got to do, no, you're not one of us. You can't come in. They knock on the door, and someone would, oh no, we know about you. They knew something about having doors closed in their faces. And Jesus is telling them, I've seen those doors shut in front of you. I've seen them shut in your face, and I have good news. I'm going to open doors for you that no one can shut. I'm going to make a way for you that no one can hinder. I am the faithful, the holy and true one. Watch and see what I do. He references a prophecy, a messianic prophecy, spoken about Him back in the book of Isaiah. He did this in last week's letter as well, but in this one, Isaiah 22, this is what it says, and I will place on His shoulder, being the Messiah, the key of the house of David. He shall open and none shall shut, and He shall shut and none shall open. It's in that prophecy that God assures His people that while they might face betrayal and opposition, that He would make sure that no attack against them would be successful. And Jesus is offering to the church at Philadelphia, His faithful followers, this same assurance. I know you've had doors shut in your face, But I am a way maker, and I'm going to open doors that try as hard as they will. No one will be able to keep you from walking through the doors that I'm going to open. He echoes the words of Isaiah 43, verses 16 through 19. I love this passage. Man, it's one of my favorites. Thus says the Lord, who makes a way in the sea, a path in the mighty waters, who brings forth chariot and horse, army and warrior. They lie down, they cannot rise. They are extinguished, quenched like a wick. Remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, look, pay attention. I'm about to do something new. It springs forth now. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Somebody in here this morning needs to hear this word of encouragement. You've hit closed door after closed door after closed door. You can't seem to figure out why do I constantly seem to be getting doors slammed in my face. But Jesus stands in front of you this morning and He says, I am holy and I am true. I have keys to doors that you aren't even aware of yet, and I'm about to open them, and no one is going to be able to shut those doors in your face. He's a way maker. He wants to make a way for you. The second promise that He tells them promises them a sure foundation. That earthquake that happened in 17 AD, it rattled everything. But there were pillars in their temples that stood strong even after the earthquake. Other things around them in the city crumbled into pieces, but there were pillars that were still standing strong. And they marveled at that. It was sort of like the thing that they bragged about. Our pillars are still standing even after the earthquake. Look, we still got pillars. Jesus knew that in their history. He knew that part of their story. And He says, to the one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. He's telling them that they would never be shaken from the temple of God, and they would receive great honor there, and nothing could take that away from them. No matter how bad the trials that they would face in the world, they would stand strong. How many of you have ever been in an earthquake before? Most of the people on this side. Well, a bunch of West Coasters over here. That's what it is. I've never been, but I mean, I remember we had one years and years ago. There was a little earthquake down in Mentone, and I woke up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I thought that our washing machine was off balance, and it was just boom, 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 and then it stopped. And I was like, oh, okay, and then went back to sleep. And then I've never experienced anything like a full-on earthquake. But I will tell you this: I've had my world shaken. I've had things where I thought would happen this way, and the unexpected take place. And I found myself saying, oh, wait a minute. That wasn't in the 5-year plan. No one told me that this was going to happen. There's been times when my world was shaken and I wanted to just crumble with everything else into a ball and say, God, why have you forsaken? Where are you? I thought you said this, but instead this is what's happening. He gives a promise to the faithful one who has locked the lordship of Jesus Christ firmly in their hearts. And He says, as long as you endure, as long as you trust me, you will remain strong with a sure foundation. As I was reading through this, I know that some of you have experienced some earthquakes in your life over the last year. You lost loved ones that you didn't expect that you were going to lose. You've had things, not just in the last year, but you've had the unthinkable to have to deal with as parents and grandparents and a brother. Losing a sister, a daughter, a granddaughter. Some of you have had jobs be taken away from you, or thought that you were going to have that job and it be shut down. Some of you have walked through a broken marriage and you've experienced the pain of rejection. Your world has been shaken. And as I study this, as I prayed through this, I truly believe that Jesus wants to encourage your heart today. And He wants to tell you that you have hope today. That you will not be destroyed. You will not stumble. You will not fall. He wants to plant your feet firmly in His temple, in His presence, where He is. And you can hold on to that, trusting in His faithfulness. He says that you'll be in His temple of His God, and never shall you go out. You don't have to go anywhere. Psalm 62:6 says, He only is my rock, my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be shaken. What would it look like if you made that your credo? Yeah, my world's been rattled, but I'm still standing. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't putting that in the plan. I didn't see that coming. But I will not be shaken. His temple, His throne is firmly established on my heart. He remains Lord. I remain loyal. And He will remain faithful because He said He would be. I will not be shaken. The third promise that He offers them, He promises them a new name, but not just any name. He offers them His name. Verse 12b, the second part of it. And I will write on him the name of my God. Listen to this. Pay attention to this. The name of my God. The name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down from my God out of heaven. And my own new name. Now, you read that very literally. You would say, well, no, he's saying he's putting three separate names. I mean, already I'm dealing with some confusion here. What's going on? Why three different names? Well, let me give you an understanding of why he's saying this. After the earthquakes took place, in an effort to appeal to Rome for assistance, Philadelphia actually changed its name for a period of time to honor the Roman Emperor Tiberius. And so there's a window of time where Philadelphia actually called itself Tiberius in an effort to appeal to the faithfulness of their emperor, but to no avail. And Jesus knew that. He knew that they allowed their identity to be taken away from them for their own purposes. They surrendered their identity. They chose for a while to be somebody else in an effort to get something that someone else couldn't deliver to them. If it sounds familiar to anybody, you ever been that place where you said, well, you know what, I am this. And in an effort to find an acceptance and approval and a sense of faithfulness from some other faulty place, you surrendered your identity. Jesus says, you don't have to do that because you're mine. And I'm going to put my name on it. I'm putting the name of my God on you. I'm putting the name of the city of my God on you. And I'm putting my name on you. In other words, there is going to be no confusion as to whose you are and where you belong. You're mine and you belong to me. And can't nobody change that. Christy and I was thinking about this when we were traveling back and forth after we first got married. We were flying back and forth to Israel. I grew up in Virginia, and the first time that I ever got on an airplane was when I was in college. It was the first time I thought, man, I was high rolling. I flew to Washington, D.C. I was that kid, that college kid that was literally staring out the window, watching the world go. I was so excited. That was the only time. Then I graduated, and we flew over to Israel, and we were flying back and forth. And one of the things that we learned to do, the importance of, rather, was to put your name on your bag. Not just your name, but your address. So that if your bag got separated from you, then somebody would know where to send your bag to. Well, we got crafty with it because it wasn't just our names that we put on. We would put unique characteristics. I always seem to remember these red yarn strings or fluffy pom-pom type things that we would tie on our bags. And that was your way to know that's your bag, don't you? That way you know that identifies as your bag. Some of you are sitting around and you're feeling like lost luggage today. You have no clue where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing. You feel like that you've been forgotten. You're not even sure who you are or what your purpose in life is. And I can't answer those questions for you, but I can tell you this. If you can circle back around to this one question, is Jesus Lord of your life? Is He seated on the throne of your heart? If we can determine that, if we can get to the answer of that question today, then that can kind of begin to take care of a whole lot of other issues like who am I, and who do I belong to, and where do I belong, and what am I supposed to be doing with my life. Because if He's Lord of your life, then He offers you this hope and this promise. I'm going to put my name on you. I'm putting the name of my God on you. I'm putting the name of the city where I live, so that if you feel like that you've been separated from me, you always know where to come home to. You can always come home to me. You are mine and I am yours, and I put my name on you to claim you for all eternity. Jesus promises us in the midst of our uncertainty and in all of our questions, we belong to Him. And nobody can take that away from you. That's right. What hope we have. I'm sure the Christians in Philadelphia have been labeled with all kinds of names in seasons of persecution and betrayal. But they remained faithful to their Lord. And Jesus remained faithful to them. I don't know what you've been called, what labels have been put on you. I'm firmly convinced this morning that your Lord, your faithful Lord, wants to come and He wants to strip some name tags off of you, some badges that you've put on. I'm a victim. I'm an addict. I'm broken. I'm wounded. I'm angry. I'm bitter. I'm lost. I'm confused. I'm depressed. I'm whatever it is, these labels that have been put on you, He wants to take them off of you, and He wants to give you His name, and He wants you to know that you belong to Him. Jesus recognizes the faithfulness of His people who will truly acknowledge Him as their Lord. And likewise, He wants them to remember His faithfulness towards them. Difficult life circumstances can make it hard to trust sometimes, right? When things are going the wrong way, it would be easy for us to question, God, where are you? Are you really there? Do you really love me? Do you really care? But today, He writes this letter not just to the church of Philadelphia, He writes it to you. He writes it to you. He writes it to you. And He says, I see you, and I am faithful to you. And if that's not enough, there are more and more promises in His word of His faithfulness. 2 Thessalonians 3:3. But the Lord is faithful. He will establish you and guard you against the evil one. Don't you just love how these are definitive words? It's not He might, He possibly will. There's a good chance that He will. No. He will establish you and guard you against the evil one. Psalm 105. For the Lord is good. His steadfast love endures forever, and His faithfulness to all generations. Lamentations 3:22 and 23. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness.